welcome to Round Robin. We're here in the History Museum with the newest temporary exhibit. Mike Cobb is our host. We're looking at an exhibit on women. Mike, why do we need that?
Robin, this is something that should have been done long ago, and I've been here over 30 years working with Hampton history, and women obviously have been an important part in Hampton's past, but we really haven't focused on it, and it's been such a good experience to do so. It's an enriching experience. It was an enriching experience for me, it was an enriching experience for the museum and for the public that will come and see it. And the reason for that is I always find that when we do these exhibits, special exhibits, that our history is much more complex than we think it is. And once we get into a topic, we find that it's very exciting, and there's stories that we just haven't even envisioned. For instance, we have done a lot of archaeology and a lot of work on our colonial past. We've had over 8 major excavations here, looking into Hampton's remnants of our past. And one of the places that we excavated was the King's Arms Tavern, and they was operated by women, 2 women, the Bro sisters. And we knew that, and we knew of isolated instances where women came to the forefront. But in doing this, we found that there were a lot of women working. Women were running the ferries across the river. Women were involved in other types of businesses other than taverns. In short, women were very much part of Hampton's economy, Hampton's society, and everything else. Now, part of this is because of conventions of society from the colonial period into the 19th century, before the Civil War, and after. Society had women in sort of in a central place, but behind the scenes. Women were the keepers of morality and raised the children to be good citizens, and they were the keepers of the home, the domestic sphere, and men were outside in the forefront in politics and many other things. But we now know that women were always involved in the political arena, in the social arena, and many others. And what this exhibit tries to do is look at the women who were doing things that were not expected of them during the time.
So, you know, going back, and I know you talked about the colonial period and moving forward, but you actually really start with the Native Americans and the somewhat different role that women played in that society here compared with the colonial folks who came in later.
Native Americans have been here for 12,000 years, 12,000 years. And in the Powhatan Society, women took leadership roles, and the English, when they come here, they remark about that. And so yes, we do. We start in the beginning, the genesis of our history, when the Native Americans shaped Hampton. And then we go into the future. We cover a huge span of time. Right. We have huge pictures, Robin, 8 of them. We call them section panels, and they divide up this very complex story about the women's experience. Just to pick a couple of people, we have Joanna Simple, and she was from Hampton. During the Civil War, she went to Richmond. And Joanna, her job was actually signing the Confederate currency. If you have any Confederate money at home, you might want to look at it, and you'll see that each one is personally signed.
Wow.
Not all by Joanna, but many of them were. We look at Harriet Tubman, who operated the Underground Railroad during the Civil War and came here to Hampton, to Fort Monroe, and operated a hospital. Fascinating women, just fascinating. We also look very carefully at women in the modern age, and Molly Darling is certainly one of those. Mrs. Darling came here at the turn of the century, the 19th century, 20th century, and she was married to J.S. Darling, who was a major mover in the seafood business. Mrs. Darling was very much in the forefront of politics and the social scene here in Hampton, as their family were great centers of the economic world here in Hampton. They had a wonderful house at Darling's. It was Cedar Hall, located near Bridge Street. And it was there that people came for Easter egg hunts and many other things. And it was also the scene of some early stages of integration where black and whites were together in social functions. Mrs. Darling was an exceptional woman that as a young lady, she went out west. She was fascinated by the American Indians, and she went there to learn about them. She brought back artifacts related to them. She was in the forefront of work at Hampton Institute, now Hampton University. She was an exceptional woman in all ways.
So a lot of times, what it sounds like is that women didn't have the political title or weren't the official CEOs of what they did, but they worked around the edges to become an unofficial leader or a champion of a cause or a business or whatever their particular role was.
Character and ability rises no matter what the situation, and that happened all the time. What has occurred is over the years, these acts become obscured, become lost, because women often were not mentioned in the newspapers by name. They were not letters and such, so it gets obscured. But it's been exciting to uncover this. Now you mentioned behind the scenes. Well, in the more recent times, you have women with titles, women that are officially there. And the one that comes to the forefront is Mayor Ann Kilgore. Mm-hmm. First female mayor in Virginia. She was very, had great vision and great energy, and probably her crowning achievement was the Hampton Coliseum, which in the days before the tolls were lifted on the interstate and the south side and was sort of divided from Hampton, Norfolk and Portsmouth and such. We built this Coliseum under her leadership and many other things as well. Mayor Ann Kilgore was one of our great mayors of all time.
And I mean, I can't imagine what it was like when she was running, when she had to have quite a bit of nerve. I mean, it was a big step forward to be the first mayor, female mayor in Virginia.
Big step forward. I grew up over in Norfolk, and Hampton was very distant in those days. And I knew two things about Hampton. One, we had a female mayor. They had a female mayor, and the Hampton Coliseum. That was it. That was what we knew.
Things.
Yeah.
Which gave a progressive image.
Progressive image, and Hampton has been progressive in many ways. Another woman comes to mind is Conover Hunt. Conover grew up in the seafood business here in Hampton. She was interested in museums. She went through the Winterthur program, became one of the country's most important museum directors and curators. One of her achievements was she went to Dallas, Texas, and created the 6th floor museum on the site where Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated JFK in November of 1963, and she created that museum. One of the images that we have here, one of my favorite images, is Conover is giving a tour to Lady Bird Johnson and her daughter Linda and others. And we have, Connie is here with us today and very much a part of Hampton, and she has accomplished so much in her life, and she is one of the people we focus on.
That's wonderful. And I do think that, that has been a role that women have been allowed to have in history, is that protector of history, of artifacts, of culture, of the arts.
That is true. That is true, and they have certainly excelled in that. I have found that women often are the ones who preserve our history, be it Monticello, be it Mount Vernon, be it Yorktown, and certainly here in Hampton you have pioneers like Sis Hamilton Evans. Sis Evans came to Hampton from another place, was here in the 60s and 70s, and she and Jean Zeiler, who was former mayor of Williamsburg, and Sarah Shaver Hughes, and Rufus Easter, really created an idea to do a museum. And they got a huge grant for the day, over $100,000 to have archaeology done here. They, very importantly, saw that the African American community had been excluded for a long time, and they made sure that it was that everybody in Hampton worked together to collect our history and were included in all the endeavors. And this was an important job that she did. Also, she went during when America was tearing down its cities during Lyndon Johnson's Great Society program. She got in front of the bulldozer. In fact, we actually have a picture, Robin, of her in front of a bulldozer.
How wonderful.
Picking up remnants of the grand buildings that were lost, and then the archaeology that was done and the collecting of history. In many ways, Sis Evans is the founder of this museum and much of what we know about Hampton.
So it's a little bit of a return from the founding of the museum and the saving of the history to the displays that recognize some of those contributions.
It is. It is. It's like going back into your family's past and finding the stories that made us who we are. And that's what this exhibit does. It's a very complex exhibit in so many ways. And when you come here, what you're going to see artifacts related to these actions. You're going to see images and stories and text. One of the things that helps hold this together, other than the section panels that I mentioned, the large images, is we have a wonderful timeline that Donna Dornendorf and Whiff Holt put together. And both of these individuals were essential to this exhibit. They did far more than I did, and also Sarah Heinzman, who was one of our staff, did a heck of a lot with this. It is just an incredible journey into our past and looking at very important people.
Well, that's wonderful. And let's wrap up by inviting people to come see this. It's in your temporary exhibit, and it's going to be here for a while. One of the things that I think you notice when you first walk in the room is the faces of these people. They are specific individuals who made contributions. It's not trying to be the grand story of everything, but let's look at some real people. And that's one of the things you guys do very well here at the History Museum.
History is people, history is stories, and what you'll find here at the Hampton History Museum, stories of us, stories of people, and it's going to be a great experience for those who come to the museum.
That's wonderful. And you guys have several events while this is up talking about specific things. I know you did one on the computers at NASA.
Yes.
And some of the other roles of women. So we'll encourage people to come back, come to many of your lectures, see the exhibit, and really get a taste for what you have here.
Welcome to the Hampton History Museum.
And welcome to the Hampton History Museum. I hope you will come see this for yourself and you've enjoyed this little taste today. Thank you for watching.